What if I told you that your entire life, your success, your failures, your happiness, your pain is nothing more than a mirror of your thoughts? Every result you've ever created started as a single idea inside your mind. But here's the twist. Most people never control that inner conversation. Their thoughts run wild, and they call it fate. Yet those who learn to command their mind shape reality itself. The greatest achievers, Napoleon Hill, Edison, Carnegie, Disney, all unlocked this one secret. Master your thoughts, and the world will bend around you. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you'll understand the power that's been inside you all along, and once you see it, you'll never think the same way again. There comes a moment in every human life when the noise of the world becomes unbearable. A moment when the opinions, expectations, failures, fears, and disappointments of life stack so high that a person no longer recognizes the sound of their own inner voice. And in that moment, a silent truth begins to whisper, a truth most people ignore until life forces them to listen. Your life will never change until your mind changes first. Every achievement begins as a thought. Every failure begins as a thought. Every transformation, revolution, invention, fortune, and empire was once nothing more than an idea, silently born inside the mind of an ordinary human being who decided not to let that thought die. Look around you. Everything you see, the device in your hand, the walls around you, the streets you walk, the companies that shape the world, existed first in the mind of someone who refused to surrender their thoughts to doubt. Thomas Edison protected a thought when the world called him insane. Henry Ford protected a thought when experts mocked him for imagining a horseless future. Walt Disney protected a thought even after being told he lacked imagination. Napoleon Hill spent 25 years studying the most powerful truth behind all success. A controlled mind creates success. An uncontrolled mind destroys it. Yet most people live as prisoners of their own thoughts. They wake up each day with a mind full of fear, regret, past failures, excuses, envy, distraction, and mental clutter, and then wonder why life repeats itself like a broken pattern. They try to change jobs, change cities, change friends, change habits, change circumstances, but they never change the one thing that controls everything, the pattern of thought within. Understand this now, because it may be the most important realization of your life. If your thinking is weak, your life will be weak. If your thinking is scattered, your results will be scattered. If your thinking is negative, life will reflect negativity back to you. But when you finally learn to master your thoughts, truly master them, you become the architect of your destiny. Not a victim of circumstance, not a product of your past, not a slave to external influence, but a deliberate creator of your future. Pause for a moment and listen, not with your ears, but with your awareness. Your mind is the first territory you must conquer. Not the world, not the competition, not the mountain ahead. Your mind. Because if the enemy lives within, the enemy outside will win every time. Most people don't lose to life. They lose to the thoughts that convince them to quit long before life tests them. Fear speaks and they kneel. Doubt speaks and they shrink. Excuses whisper and they obey. They never realize that the mind is not supposed to command them. They are supposed to command the mind. Thoughts are not kings to be worshipped. Thoughts are tools to be directed. Just because a thought appears in your mind does not make it true, useful, or worthy of your attention. The mind is a garden and thoughts are seeds. Whatever you plant, you will harvest. Plant fear, reap limitation. Plant courage, reap progress. Plant faith, reap miracles. There is no escaping this law. It has governed every life, every era, every civilization. But today, in the modern world, most minds are filled with weeds, negativity, anxiety, comparison, instant gratification, mental chaos, and those weeds have choked the dreams that once lived inside. Think back to when you were a child, fearless, imaginative, alive with possibilities. You believed you could be anything. Why? Because your thoughts were free, unpolluted, and filled with possibility. But somewhere along the way, the world taught you to doubt. Parents spoke from their fears. Teachers measured your worth by grades. Society compared you to others. Failures convinced you to lower your expectations. And thoughts once filled with fire became diluted with hesitation. But the truth has not changed, only your awareness of it has. You still possess the same mind that once believed anything was possible. The power never left you, it simply fell asleep beneath the weight of life. Today is the day you wake it up, because the first step to transforming your life is reclaiming control of the one thing that shapes every second of your existence, your thoughts. And if you truly absorb the message that is coming, not just hear it, not just understand it intellectually, but feel it, this may be the day everything changes for you. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, not because the world shifts in your favor, but because you finally realize that your inner world creates your outer world and you hold the keys. But knowing that your thoughts shape your reality is not enough. Awareness without discipline is like a candle in the storm. It flickers, it glows for a moment, but it cannot withstand the winds of life. To transform your life, you must go beyond merely understanding the power of thought. You must learn to control it, direct it, and protect it with the same intensity that a warrior guards the gates of his kingdom. Because your mind is a kingdom, and every day, forces attempt to invade it: fear, doubt, envy, distraction, negativity, media, noise, the opinions of others, and the echoes of your past. If you do not stand at the gates and choose what enters, your mind will become occupied by forces that do not serve your destiny. Great achievers throughout history shared one uncommon trait: they ruled their minds. They understood that success does not begin with action. Action is the result. Success begins with thought, disciplined thought, directed thought, intentional thought. Andrew Carnegie once said that the greatest power known to man is the ability to hold a single thought in his mind long enough to bring it into reality. Most people cannot hold a thought of greatness for more than a minute before doubt interrupts and replaces it with fear. They never learn to persist with a thought until it becomes a belief and then a reality. The average mind jumps from thought to thought like a restless bird, never landing long enough to build a nest. And a mind that never focuses never creates. It reacts, but it does not direct. It wishes, but it does not command. It dreams, but it does not manifest. To change your life, you must become the master of your mental focus. You must choose your thoughts the way a sculptor chooses his tools, the way a composer chooses his notes, the way a leader chooses his words, with intention, with clarity, with vision. Imagine this clearly. Your thoughts are architects, and your mind is the blueprint. Every thought you repeat builds a structure within you, a belief, and beliefs become the walls, floors, ceilings, and foundations of your life. If your thoughts are small, your life will be built small. If your thoughts are temporary, your success will be temporary. If your thoughts are borrowed from others, your life will be a copy of theirs, not an original creation of your own. This is why people with extraordinary potential live ordinary lives, not because they lack talent, opportunity, intelligence, or resources, but because their thoughts never rose high enough to match their potential. The mind must be trained to think in alignment with the life you want. You cannot think like a victim and live like a victor. You cannot think in scarcity and live in abundance. You cannot think in fear and walk in courage. You cannot think in limitation and step into greatness. Life does not obey what you want, it obeys what you think. Not occasionally, not sometimes, but consistently. If your dominant thoughts contradict your desires, your mind will sabotage your actions. If your dominant thoughts are negative, you will interpret neutral events negatively. If your dominant thoughts are empowering, you will find strength even in adversity. This is why two people can live through the same circumstances. One rises, one breaks. The difference is not the event, it is the interpretation, the meaning assigned. the internal narrative created in the mind. There is a battlefield within you, the battle for your thoughts. And until you win that war, every external victory will be short-lived. So the question is not, can you change your life? Of course you can. The real question is, can you control the thoughts that control your life? Because your thoughts are not silent. They speak. They tell you what you can do, what you cannot do, what you should fear, what you should avoid, what you are capable of, and who you are. And if you do not consciously direct that voice, it becomes a reflection of your past conditioning, not your future potential. You must learn to separate yourself from your thoughts. You are not the voice in your mind. You are the one who hears it. You are the observer, the chooser, the thinker, not the thought itself. The moment you realize this, your life begins to change. Because now, you are no longer a servant to your thoughts. You are the master of them. From this point forward, notice your thoughts, the way a scientist studies patterns, the way a strategist watches the battlefield, the way a captain reads the wind. Become aware of which thoughts weaken you and which thoughts strengthen you, because thoughts carry energy, some drain, some empower. And once you recognize the difference, you can begin the most important practice of your life, replacing thoughts that limit you with thoughts that liberate you. This is the real work. Not chasing success, preparing the mind for success. Not forcing change, aligning your thoughts with the change you seek. Not wishing for a new life, thinking like the person who lives it. The transformation begins the moment you accept that the mind you currently have has created the life you currently live. And if you desire a different life, you must build a different mind. Not tomorrow. Not when life becomes easier. Not when circumstances improve. But now, in this moment, while the desire for change is burning within you, because if you let the moment pass, the world will close over you again, and your mind will fall back into its old patterns. Change requires urgency. It requires decisiveness. It requires the courage to stand guard at the gates of your mind and say, "No more. My thoughts will no longer work against me. From this moment forward, I control them, and they will align with the life I choose to create." Once you make the decision to control your thoughts, the world within you begins to shift. It won't happen loudly. It won't come with fireworks or applause. It begins as a subtle but powerful inner awakening, a quiet realization that you are no longer living life on autopilot. You are beginning to think with intention. At first, it will feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, because you are breaking mental habits that have ruled you for years, maybe decades, thought patterns that were handed to you by your past, by society, by people who never understood their own minds. Now you are questioning them, challenging them, replacing them. This is the first stage of inner transformation, awareness. You will begin to notice the thoughts you never noticed before, the quick judgments, the self-doubt, the assumptions, the invisible fears that whispered to you so often they felt like truth. As this awareness grows, something remarkable happens. You begin to see that most of your thoughts were never yours to begin with. They were inherited, absorbed, adopted, programmed, family, culture, media, school, friends, environment, all shaping your thinking before you ever learned to think for yourself. And once you awaken to this, you realize something life-changing. You can unlearn what weakens you. You can learn what empowers you. Your mind is not fixed. It is moldable. It is clay. And you are the sculptor. But awareness alone is not enough. It must lead to mental discipline. Because an undisciplined mind is like a wild horse, powerful, fast, full of potential, but uncontrollable and dangerous until trained. A disciplined mind, however, becomes a force capable of carrying you beyond the limits of ordinary existence. So how do you discipline the mind? Not through force, but through consistency, daily practice, daily awareness, daily correction. Just as the body grows stronger with exercise, the mind grows stronger with intentional thought. Every time you replace a negative thought with a powerful one, your mind evolves. Every time you refuse to indulge fear, your courage grows. Every time you redirect your focus from problems to possibilities, your vision sharpens. Every time you remain calm in chaos, your inner strength multiplies. Think of the mind like a muscle few people train. Those who do become unstoppable. History is filled with individuals who mastered their minds before they mastered the world. Before Lincoln saved a nation, he conquered depression within himself. Before Nelson Mandela led millions, he ruled his mind during 27 years of imprisonment. Before Oprah transformed media, she overcame the mental wounds of her past. Before any hero rises on the outside, they win the battle on the inside. And if there is one thing your life is calling you to do, as this inner transformation deepens, you will begin to notice a shift in the way you experience life. It won't be that challenges disappear, they won't. Life will still test you. Obstacles will still arise. People will still misunderstand you. The difference is that your response will no longer be controlled by old thought patterns. Where you once reacted with frustration, you will respond with clarity. Where you once felt overwhelmed, you will feel composed. Where you once saw walls, you will begin to see doors. Because when your thoughts change, your perception changes, and perception is the lens through which you interpret reality. Two people can face the same storm. One curses the rain, the other plants seeds. The storm is the same. The thoughts are not. And this is where many people misunderstand the power of thought. Controlling your thoughts does not mean ignoring reality or pretending life is perfect. It means choosing the meaning you attach to reality, a meaning that empowers you rather than weakens you. When you control your thoughts, adversity becomes training. Rejection becomes redirection. Failure becomes feedback. Delay becomes preparation. And challenges become teachers. Life does not get easier. You get stronger because your thoughts stop attacking you and start supporting you. This shift marks the beginning of the second stage of transformation, mental alignment. Your thoughts, emotions, actions, and values begin to synchronize. You no longer think one way, feel another way, and act in another. Your inner world becomes unified, coherent, congruent, and with that alignment comes power. Most people are internally divided. They desire success but think like failure. They want confidence but feed insecurity. They pray for change but repeat the same self-defeating thoughts. This inner conflict drains life force. It fragments energy. But when thought aligns with desire, energy flows in one direction forward. This is why clarity of thought is one of the greatest powers a human can possess. Because clarity eliminates confusion, and confusion is the root of most suffering. When you become intentional about your thinking, you begin to ask yourself questions that the average person never considers. What am I choosing to focus on right now? Is this thought lifting me or lowering me? What belief is shaping my perception of this situation? Is this thought coming from fear or from vision? Questions like these sharpen the mind the way a blade sharpens steel. They elevate thought from unconscious reaction to conscious creation. Because the mind left unexamined becomes a cage, the mind examined becomes a key. And as this awareness grows, a deeper truth begins to rise within you, a truth that few people discover. You are not here to survive life. You are here to direct it. You were not born to drift like a leaf in the wind, controlled by circumstance. You were born to command your inner world so deeply that your outer world reshapes around you. When you grasp this, even lightly, an inner fire awakens the fire of personal responsibility, not the heavy kind that blames you for everything, but the empowering kind that reminds you, if my thoughts created this version of my life, then I can create a greater one. This realization is liberation, because it frees you from the illusion that life is something happening to you. You begin to understand that life is happening through you, through your interpretations, your energy, your thoughts, your mindset. This is the moment the victim identity begins to dissolve. You stop waiting for circumstances to change. You stop waiting for people to treat you differently. You stop waiting for luck, permission, or perfect timing. You begin to see that the door to your transformation was never locked. The key was always within the discipline of thought. And with this empowerment comes a responsibility that distinguishes the average from the exceptional. The responsibility to direct your mind, even when life challenges you, especially when life challenges you. Because anyone can think positively when things are going well. The true test of mental mastery is how you think when the world shakes you. Can you remain steady when plans collapse? Can you hold faith when results are delayed? Can you maintain vision when nothing around you validates it yet? Every person who ever achieved greatness faced this test. Edison did not control his thoughts after success, he controlled them through thousands of failures. Ford did not control his thoughts after becoming a titan, he controlled them when mocked as a fool. Disney did not control his thoughts once celebrated, he controlled them, long before anyone believed in him. They did not rise because they were lucky. They rose because they mastered the battlefield of the mind before attempting to conquer the world. This is the third stage of transformation, and it is where most people give up. Mental resilience. The ability to sustain empowering thoughts not for minutes or hours, but for weeks, months, years, long enough for reality to bend to them. And if you continue on this path, if you refuse to abandon the thoughts that strengthen you, if you nurture them the way a gardener protects a rare seed, then slowly, steadily, a new identity begins to emerge. Not a temporary boost of motivation, not a short-lived phase, but a fundamental shift in who you are. You begin to think as the person you want to become, not about them, but as them. And once the mind accepts a new identity, the world rearranges itself to match it. This emerging identity is the most sacred phase of your transformation, because identity is the root from which all thoughts grow. You cannot permanently change your life with temporary thoughts. You must become the kind of person whose natural thinking produces the life you seek. When your identity shifts, discipline is no longer a battle, it becomes your nature. Confidence is no longer forced, it becomes your baseline. Success is no longer a distant dream, it becomes inevitable. Because your thoughts no longer argue with your potential, they support it. This is the stage where inner alignment evolves into inner power. Not loud power, not ego-driven power, but quiet, unwavering, sovereign power, the kind of power that cannot be shaken by circumstance, opinion, or external chaos. People around you will notice the change long before the results fully show. They won't be able to explain it, but they will feel it. Your presence will shift. Your energy will sharpen. Your calm will deepen. Opportunities will begin to appear where they once seemed absent, not because the world suddenly transforms, but because your mind now recognizes doors that your old thoughts were blind to. The right people begin to enter your life not by accident, but because your frequency has changed. Thoughts are magnetic. When they elevate, your environment elevates. You stop chasing, you start attracting. This is the moment you begin to understand one of the deepest truths Napoleon Hill shared in his teachings. The dominating thoughts of your mind attract their physical equivalent into your life. Not sometimes, not occasionally, but inevitably. Your life becomes a mirror of the thoughts you repeatedly hold with emotion, belief, and conviction. And once you see this happening, not as theory, not as philosophy, but as your lived experience, you will never again allow your thoughts to wander unconsciously. A person who has tasted the power of directed thought will never return to mental chaos. From here, something beautiful begins to unfold: vision. Not a fantasy, not vague hope. A vision rooted in clarity, intention, and inner certainty. Your thoughts begin to stretch beyond your present reality and into the future you are now shaping. You begin to see yourself achieving, evolving, expanding. You begin to imagine with purpose instead of daydreaming without action. And with vision comes a sense of purpose, a calling that rises from deep within, no longer drowned out by fear or self-doubt. You begin to feel that your life is not random. You are here for a reason, and that reason is becoming clearer. Purpose fuels thought with intensity. Thought fueled by purpose becomes belief. Belief sustained becomes reality. This inner alignment creates a transformation so profound that you will one day look back and barely recognize the person you once were, the one who doubted, feared, hesitated, and overthought. Not with judgment, but with gratitude, because that version of you was necessary. That version of you began the journey. They were the seed and you are the bloom. But do not think the journey ends here. Clarity and purpose are powerful, but they must be supported by something equally essential: discipline of thought in the face of distraction. Do not wait for evidence before you believe. Belief is the seed, evidence is the fruit. Demanding proof before committing to a thought is like refusing to plant a seed until the tree has already grown. Your life will always expand to the size of your dominant belief. If you believe you are capable of more, life will present opportunities that match that belief. If you believe you are trapped, life will reflect that imprisonment. The world responds to the frequency of your thinking long before the results appear in the physical. But to control your thoughts, you must first become aware of them. Most people never question their thinking. They repeat the same recycled thoughts every day. 90% of today's thoughts are the same as yesterday's. They wake up and think as the old self, speak as the old self, act as the old self, and then wonder why nothing changes. They do not realize they are living on mental autopilot, running a program they never consciously chose. Awakening begins the moment you observe a thought and say, "This does not belong to the future I want. I choose again." This is the birth of mental sovereignty, the moment you stop being a servant of your mind and begin becoming its master. True transformation requires a mental rebellion, a refusal to allow old thoughts to command your future, a deliberate decision to think higher than your circumstances. The great achievers possessed this discipline of thought. They trained their mind with the same dedication an athlete trains their body. They understood that success wasn't a matter of luck, it was a matter of mental conditioning. Thomas Edison, after thousands of failed attempts to create the electric light, did not merely stay positive, he controlled the meaning of the failure. When asked how he felt about failing 10,000 times, he answered, "I didn't fail 10,000 times, I successfully found 10,000 ways that will not work." One man sees failure as proof of inadequacy, another sees it as progress. The difference is thought. So when you fail, and you will decide beforehand what that failure will mean. Will it be a signal to retreat or a nudge to refine your approach? Will you interpret it as humiliation or education? Your interpretation is your power. But awareness and belief are only the beginning. Controlled thought becomes life-changing when it is unified with vision. A mind without vision is like a ship without a destination. It moves, but it goes nowhere that matters. Vision gives your thoughts direction, purpose, and momentum. It instructs your mind on what to focus on and what to ignore. When your vision is clear, your thoughts begin aligning with that picture. You start filtering reality through the lens of where you are going, not where you are. Your mind becomes a magnet, drawing in ideas, people, and opportunities that resonate with your desired future. If you lack vision, life will assign you one usually built from society's expectations, not your soul's calling. You will think thoughts inherited from others, dreams borrowed, goals recycled, and no matter how hard you work, the results will never feel like fulfillment. Clarity of vision is the beginning of self-authorship. It is the moment you stop living by default and start living by design. But vision alone is not enough. It must be felt. The mind is influenced by emotion far more than logic. A thought infused with emotion becomes a command. Without emotion, a thought is just a wish. To transform your life, your vision must move you. It must awaken something inside you, a sense of destiny, urgency, or inevitability. Close your eyes and see it. See the life that would make you proud. See the strength in your posture, the confidence in your voice, the clarity in your decisions. See where you live, how you think, how you contribute, how you evolve. See the relationships you attract, the impact you make, the peace you carry in your spirit. Do not just visualize the outcome. Visualize yourself becoming the person capable of it, because the gap between the life you live and the life you want is not measured in time, it is measured in identity. And identity is constructed thought by thought. If you do not change your thinking, you cannot change your life. If you do not rise in your mind, you will not rise in your reality. The ancient truth still stands. As within, so without. As above, so below. Your inner world is the architect. Your outer world is the construction. And here is where most people sabotage themselves. They hold a powerful vision for a few days, then allow old thoughts to creep back in. They water the garden of their future, then pour poison into the soil through doubt, comparison, fear, and impatience. Guard your mental garden. The weeds of negative thought grow quickly, not because you are weak, but because the mind has been conditioned for years to react, fear, and doubt. You are not fighting your nature, you are rewiring your conditioning. And that takes repetition, not perfection. Every time you redirect a negative thought, you strengthen your mental muscles. Every time you choose possibility over limitation, you elevate your mental frequency. Every time you act despite fear, you reclaim authority over your life. And slowly, thought by thought, belief by belief, action by action, you build a mind strong enough to shape reality. The world you live in today is designed to scatter your mind. Every notification is a hook. Every comparison is a trap. Every distraction is an invitation to abandon your inner world for the outer noise. This is why so few rise, not because greatness is inaccessible, but because the world constantly pulls the mind away from the inner work that creates it. To protect your thoughts, you must learn the art of mental boundaries. Not walls around your heart, boundaries around your focus. Not a closed mind, a trained mind. Not isolation, intentional protection of the environment that shapes your thinking. You must become conscious of what you allow your mind to consume, because thoughts are shaped by input. The books you read, the conversations you engage in, the content you absorb, the people you surround yourself with. If you feed the mind garbage, it will think garbage. If you feed the mind greatness, it will think greatness. Guard your mental diet as diligently as you guard your physical health, because a single negative conversation, a single toxic influence, or a single destructive narrative repeated daily can weaken the thought patterns you are working so hard to build. Your mind is your most valuable asset. Invest in it, feed it, challenge it, nourish it. Because the moment you stop feeding the mind with intention, the weeds return. Negativity is not destroyed, it is starved. Fear is not eliminated, it is silenced through strength. Old patterns do not vanish, they lose their power when you stop giving them your attention. This phase of your evolution demands something the average person avoids: consistency without immediate reward. But you are no longer average. You are building a mind capable of building a life few dare to imagine. And if you remain loyal to this inner work, the work no one sees, no one applauds, no one celebrates, then a moment will arrive that changes everything. You will wake up one day and realize that the mind you used to struggle to control now works for you effortlessly, not as a rebel, but as an ally, not as a saboteur, but as a servant to your vision, not as a source of suffering, but as the birthplace of your greatness. And if your mind has the power to shape your internal world, it also holds the power to reshape your external world, because the outer world is nothing more than a mirror reflecting the dominant patterns of your inner thinking. This is where most people misunderstand life. They believe success is something you chase, but the truth the great achievers discovered is that success is something you attract by becoming the person who is worthy of it. The world does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are prepared to receive. Carnegie did not stand at the gates of opportunity hoping someone would notice him. He conditioned his mind with a belief so powerful that the world had no choice but to rearrange itself in his favor. Henry Ford didn't sit waiting for permission to build his vision. He cultivated the inner certainty, the mental picture so strong that even when every engineer around him insisted the V8 engine is impossible, his response was not anger, not doubt, but a calm, unyielding thought: produce it anyway. That is the power of mental domination. The power to hold a thought with such persistence that the universe bends under its weight. But holding a thought is not enough. You must protect it. A weak mind is like an unlocked door on a windy night. Anything can blow in. Opinions, fears, doubts, gossip, judgments, ridicule, and most destructive of all, the beliefs of those who surrendered their dreams long ago. Guard your mind like a sacred fortress. Not everyone deserves access to your vision. Some people speak with certainty while having achieved nothing. Some laugh at ambition because they are terrified of their own potential. If you allow their voice to echo in your mind, you hand them the pen to write your future. You must decide who earns the right to influence your inner world. Look at the biographies of the greats. Not one of them succeeded, surrounded by doubters. Every visionary, from Eleanor Roosevelt to Walt Disney, understood that environment is a silent sculptor of destiny. If the voices around you speak more about limits than possibilities, you are inhaling mental poison. If they talk more about problems than solutions, you are being trained to shrink. Your mind deserves a higher environment, one that elevates thought rather than suffocates it. But even when you create this environment, even when you choose empowering thoughts, life will not spare you from challenges. It will test the strength of your mental foundation, because only the mind that can remain steady in the storm is worthy of leading a life of greatness. Adversity arrives not to break you, but to reveal you. It exposes the quality of your thinking. Two people can face the same failure. One sees evidence they are not good enough. The other sees evidence they must grow stronger. Two people can lose their job. One collapses into self-pity. The other sees the moment as a doorway to reinvention. Same situation, different internal interpretation, different destiny. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by the meaning you assign to what happens to you. Your thoughts are the authors of that meaning. So when life challenges you, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, what thought would a stronger, wiser, future version of me choose right now? Because your future self is already calling you to rise, and every powerful transformation begins with a single upgraded thought. Thoughts become beliefs. Beliefs become decisions. Decisions become actions. Actions become habits. Habits become identity. Identity becomes destiny. All of it begins in the invisible kingdom of the mind. And now, if you are willing, you can begin reshaping yours with a simple but profound shift. Stop thinking from your current circumstances. Start thinking from the vision of the life you intend to create. There is a difference between a mind that thinks reactively and a mind that thinks creatively. One responds to the world that is, the other commands the world that will be. When you think only based on what you can see today, you stay trapped in the limitations of today. But when you think from the reality you wish to build, you elevate your vibration, your decisions, your behavior, and slowly, the world begins to restructure around you. This is not fantasy. It is the mechanism through which revolutions are born. Every invention, every breakthrough, every legacy began as a thought held long enough to become form. The Wright brothers thought from the sky before any man had flown. Nelson Mandela thought from freedom long before the prison gates opened. Oprah thought from impact long before anyone knew her name. If they had thought only from their current conditions, nothing extraordinary would have existed. You have the same gift, the same mental power, but most people never activate it because they are hypnotized by the illusion of now. The present moment is not a prophecy. It is simply a result, a snapshot of your past thinking. If you do not like what you see today, do not fight the present. Change the thoughts that are constructing the future. But a powerful mind is not built solely on positive thinking. It is built on disciplined thinking. Without discipline, thought becomes scattered, unfocused, and fragile. A disciplined mind is intentional. It chooses what to think, when to think it, and how long to hold that thought without allowing distractions to fracture its focus. Discipline of the mind is the birthplace of personal power. Look at every great figure of history. Their achievements were not born from convenience, but from mental rigor. They trained their thoughts to obey their vision, not their emotions. While others allowed moods and circumstances to dictate their actions, the greats acted from principle, not impulse. Consider Abraham Lincoln. In the darkest years of the Civil War, when the nation fractured and fear pulsed through every headline, he refused to allow panic into his mind. He carried a vision of unity so deeply that even in isolation, betrayal, and doubt, he did not surrender the thought of a united nation. That dominance of thought was not accidental, it was engineered. Real success demands that same inner governance. You cannot control the events of the world, but you can control the mental meaning you give them, and therefore, the power they hold over you. When the mind is undisciplined, emotions hijack reason. Fear becomes louder than purpose. Excuses appear more convincing than possibility. But when the mind is trained, emotion becomes a servant of vision, not a thief of destiny. Discipline is not a restriction, it is liberation. The undisciplined mind is a prison. The disciplined mind is a passport. And just as the body requires exercise to grow stronger, the mind requires mental workouts, daily habits that sharpen clarity, elevate thinking, and reinforce identity. Silence is one of them. In a world drowning in noise, silence is not absence, it is access. Access to deeper thought, higher awareness, inner guidance. Great thinkers, inventors, and leaders all practiced solitude because they understood that genius doesn't shout, it whispers, and only a still mind can hear it. If your mind is constantly reacting, scrolling, comparing, consuming, it has no space to create. You cannot build a masterpiece with a cluttered mind. Dedicate moments of each day to sacred silence, not to escape the world, but to command it from within. In silence, you recalibrate your thoughts. In silence, you choose who you will be for the day. In silence, you reclaim authorship of your life. Another habit of mental discipline is directed focus, the ability to concentrate fully on one meaningful task without diversion. Every time you multitask, you dilute your power. Every unfinished task leaves a fragment of your attention scattered in the world. Success requires intensity of focus, a laser-like application of thought. Da Vinci, Tesla, Beethoven, Jobs, their genius was not just in imagination, but in sustained focus. They could hold a single line of thought long enough for brilliance to surface. Most people never access their potential because they abandon an idea the moment it becomes challenging or uncomfortable. They chase stimulation over mastery. Your greatness will not come from doing more. It will come from thinking deeper and focusing longer. But even with discipline, you will face resistance not from the world, but from your own mind. As you begin to think bigger, your old identity will fight to pull you back. It will whisper familiar thoughts. You're not ready. What if you fail? Who do you think you are? Stay where it's safe. These thoughts are not truth, they are memory. Mental echoes from a past version of you that is terrified of evolution. Growth threatens the mind that is attached to comfort, and it would rather keep you small than risk unfamiliar territory. A controlled mind does not negotiate with these thoughts, it transcends them. When doubt speaks, respond with a higher thought. When fear rises, breathe and choose courage anyway. When the old self tries to reclaim control, remind it, I am no longer available for a life beneath my potential. This is where transformation becomes irreversible, when your thoughts begin to align not with who you have been, but with who you are determined to become. And once that shift occurs, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Your external life starts to reflect your internal evolution. Opportunities appear that match your new identity. People gravitate toward your energy. Ideas flow. Synchronicities multiply. Challenges become stepping stones. And the vision you once had to force becomes natural because you have become the person capable of living it. Growth is not about chasing a new life. It is about thinking in a way that attracts it. And as your thoughts rise, so must your relationship with gratitude, not as a cliché, but as a conscious mental tool that amplifies everything you are building. Gratitude is one of the most powerful forms of thought control known to humanity. It rewires the mind to see possibility rather than lack, progress rather than failure, abundance rather than scarcity. It shifts your mental state from "I need more" to "I already have the foundation to become more." Gratitude elevates your emotional frequency, and a higher emotional frequency draws higher experiences into your life. You cannot create a life you love from a mindset of resentment, comparison, or scarcity. These thoughts repel growth. But gratitude opens the door. It tells the mind, "There is already good here, let's multiply it." When you are grateful for what you have, you become magnetic to more. When you are bitter about what you lack, you block the flow of life. So practice gratitude not as a reaction to blessings, but as a creator of them. Do not wait for life to be perfect before you feel grateful. That is conditional gratitude, and it carries no power. Be grateful while you build, while you struggle, while you evolve. Gratitude in the midst of challenge is the mark of a trained mind, a mind that refuses to surrender control of its state to circumstances. Wake with gratitude, work with gratitude, grow with gratitude, not because everything is easy, but because you are choosing to see the value in every step of the climb. And as gratitude expands your emotional capacity, another mental tool becomes essential for the evolution of your thoughts' adaptability. A rigid mind breaks. A flexible mind rises. Life will not unfold exactly as your plans predict. The path to your vision will twist, reroute, and transform in ways you cannot foresee. Those who live mentally chained to how it must happen often abandon their dreams when the first plan collapses. But disciplined thinkers, masterful thinkers, do not worship the path. They stay loyal to the vision and adapt the strategy. Adaptability is a sign of inner strength, not compromise. It means you trust your ability to navigate the unknown. It means your belief in your vision is greater than your attachment to your initial blueprint. When the world shifts, do not cling to old thinking. Evolve your thoughts to match the new terrain. The greatest opportunities often appear disguised as disruption. Think of Walt Disney. Before the magic of Disneyland existed, he faced bankruptcy, betrayal, and studios that mocked his vision. But when doors closed, he didn't see rejection, he saw redirection. He adapted not by shrinking his dream, but by thinking at a higher level of possibility. Where others saw a cartoon, he saw a kingdom of imagination that would outlive him. Greatness requires that kind of mental flexibility, the willingness to rethink, reinvent, and rise again, without losing sight of who you are becoming. But even adaptability is incomplete without resilience, the mental endurance to persist through seasons of uncertainty, delay, and solitude. Because there will come a time in every transformative journey where results are invisible, where progress hides beneath the surface, where you question whether all the internal work is worth it. This is the phase where most people quit, not because they lack talent, but because they lack mental endurance. Resilience is the mastery of thought during darkness. It is the refusal to betray your vision in the absence of evidence. It is the quiet voice within that says, "I will not stop." When Thomas Edison worked through thousands of experiments in the dark, he wasn't sustained by proof, he was sustained by thought. Resilient thought. A thought that said, "It exists, and I will find it." And as your thoughts rise, so must your relationship with gratitude, not as a cliche, but as a conscious mental tool that amplifies everything you are building. Gratitude is one of the most powerful forms of thought control known to humanity. It rewires the mind to see possibility rather than lack, progress rather than failure, abundance rather than scarcity. It shifts your mental state from "I need more" to "I already have the foundation to become more." Gratitude elevates your emotional frequency, and a higher emotional frequency draws higher experiences into your life. You cannot create a life you love from a mindset of resentment, comparison, or scarcity. These thoughts repel growth. But gratitude opens the door. It tells the mind, "There is already good here, let's multiply it." When you are grateful for what you have, you become magnetic to more. When you are bitter about what you lack, you block the flow of life. So practice gratitude not as a reaction to blessings, but as a creator of them. Do not wait for life to be perfect before you feel grateful. That is conditional gratitude, and it carries no power. Be grateful while you build, while you struggle, while you evolve. Gratitude in the midst of challenge is the mark of a trained mind, a mind that refuses to surrender control of its state to circumstances. Wake with gratitude, work with gratitude, grow with gratitude, not because everything is easy, but because you are choosing to see the value in every step of the climb. And as gratitude expands your emotional capacity, another mental tool becomes essential for the evolution of your thoughts' adaptability. A rigid mind breaks. A flexible mind rises. Life will not unfold exactly as your plans predict. The path to your vision will twist, reroute, and transform in ways you cannot foresee. Those who live mentally chained to how it must happen often abandon their dreams when the first plan collapses. But disciplined thinkers, masterful thinkers, do not worship the path. They stay loyal to the vision and adapt the strategy. Adaptability is a sign of inner strength, not compromise. It means you trust your ability to navigate the unknown. It means your belief in your vision is greater than your attachment to your initial blueprint. When the world shifts, do not cling to old thinking. Evolve your thoughts to match the new terrain. The greatest opportunities often appear disguised as disruption. Think of Walt Disney. Before the magic of Disneyland existed, he faced bankruptcy, betrayal, and studios that mocked his vision. But when doors closed, he didn't see rejection, he saw redirection. He adapted not by shrinking his dream, but by thinking at a higher level of possibility. Where others saw a cartoon, he saw a kingdom of imagination that would outlive him. Greatness requires that kind of mental flexibility, the willingness to rethink, reinvent, and rise again, without losing sight of who you are becoming. But even adaptability is incomplete without resilience, the mental endurance to persist through seasons of uncertainty, delay, and solitude. Because there will come a time, in every transformative journey, where results are invisible, where progress hides beneath the surface, where you question whether all the internal work is worth it. This is the phase where most people quit, not because they lack talent, but because they lack mental endurance. Resilience is the mastery of thought during darkness. It is the refusal to betray your vision in the absence of evidence. It is the quiet voice within that says, "I will not stop." When Thomas Edison worked through thousands of experiments in the dark, he wasn't sustained by proof, he was sustained by thought. Resilient thought. A thought that said, "It exists, and I will find it." But purpose is not always loud. It does not always arrive with certainty. Sometimes, purpose begins as curiosity, a small spark of interest. Sometimes it is born from pain, the desire to heal what once wounded you. Sometimes purpose emerges when you finally admit that the life you are living is too small for the person you are becoming. Do not wait for purpose to be perfect before you begin to follow it. Move toward what feels meaningful, and clarity will sharpen as you progress. The mind becomes clearer about purpose through action, not overthinking. Once purpose awakens, your thoughts must align with it, because purpose without aligned thinking becomes wishful dreaming, not destiny. When you think from purpose, your decisions gain weight. You begin asking, does this thought strengthen or weaken who I am becoming? Does this action serve or sabotage my highest path? Purpose elevates your inner standards, and once your standards rise, your life must rise to match them, because nothing changes a person's destiny faster than raising the standards of what they will and will not allow in their mind. When you raise your mental standards, you stop tolerating thoughts of self-betrayal. You stop allowing fear to speak louder than faith. You stop negotiating with procrastination, doubt, laziness, or excuses. You begin thinking like the future version of yourself, not the past. Your purpose demands a new mental identity, and identity is built through repetition of thought, backed by action. You become what you think, yes, but you also become what you repeat. Repeat a thought long enough, and it becomes a belief. Live a belief long enough, and it becomes your identity. Protect an identity long enough, and it becomes your destiny. This is why the most powerful work in life is not done in the world, it is done in the mind. Because when your identity aligns with your purpose, your external life has no choice but to transform. Purpose is the engine. Identity is the vehicle. Thought is the driver. But no matter how powerful your purpose is, no matter how elevated your thoughts become, there is one more mental force required to transform your life. Persistent action aligned with thought. Thought without action is imagination. Action without thought is chaos. But thought and action united create transformation. When thought leads and action follows, you become unstoppable. You begin living in integrity with your vision. You bridge the gap between the world in your mind and the world in your hands. Every action, even a small, imperfect one, reinforces a thought. It tells the mind, we are serious about this vision, and the mind responds by strengthening the neural pathways that support that vision. With each action, belief deepens. With each step, identity shifts. With each decision, the old self fades and the new self rises. Do not wait for motivation to act. Act to create motivation. Do not wait for confidence to start. Start to build confidence. Do not wait for the perfect plan commit, and clarity will follow. Your journey is not shaped by the thoughts you have occasionally, but by the thoughts you honor consistently through action. And as your actions compound, you begin to experience the most beautiful mental phenomenon of all, alignment, where your thoughts, beliefs, actions, identity, and purpose are no longer in conflict, but moving as one. This alignment creates momentum, and momentum is the closest thing to magic the mind will ever experience. It feels as if the universe begins opening doors that were once locked. People appear to support you. Ideas flow with ease. Obstacles shrink. Opportunities expand. Life begins to cooperate with your direction. It is not magic, it is mental alignment, expressed through energy, behavior, and identity. This is the evolution of a sovereign mind, a mind in control, a mind that creates rather than reacts, a mind that leads rather than follows. And once a mind reaches this state, it becomes capable of the highest mental expression, contribution. Because a truly elevated mind does not seek success only for itself, it seeks to elevate others. It seeks to leave an imprint on the world, to inspire, to uplift, to awaken. You cannot control your thoughts at a high level and not feel called to impact others, because mastery naturally expands into service. Your transformation becomes a torch, and others, walking through their darkness, will see your light. Before we dive deeper, take a second to subscribe, not for motivation, but for transformation. This channel isn't about quick inspiration. It's about rewiring the mind that creates your destiny. If you're ready to break free from mental limits, reprogram your thoughts, and finally live on purpose, hit that subscribe button right now, because every video here is another step toward the highest version of you.